welcome to the Nasboys podcast. So today we got the long-awaited grades video for the 2023 season. Before we get into the video, I'm your host Mike, and I'm with my co-hosts Christian, aka Savage NASCAR,
Stop.
and Cam, aka Noticed_Cam.
Howdy, y'all.
So we've been doing this for the past few years that we've done the podcast. So basically, the way it's going to go is we're going to go through each driver alphabetically for the most part. And in the right-hand corner, you're going to see the grades that we gave the drivers last year. We're going to explain why we gave the grades to the drivers. So it's really a season review for every driver for just a short period of time. So I'm really excited to get into this. How about you guys?
It's definitely gonna be much different than last year with some of these guys. So I'm
For
interested in
sure.
seeing what y'all have for some of these guys. But
Some
I kind of
drivers
already know what I'm gonna say about some of them. Yeah.
Some drivers definitely made an improvement, and some of them stayed the same, and some of them really just had a down year. So let's get started. We're going to kick things off with AJ Allmendinger. Now, AJ Allmendinger is in his first full-time Cup Series season since I want to say 2016. If I'm wrong, Christian, you can correct me. But this is his first full-time Cup season in a long time. He had high expectations going into the season with his performance in the Xfinity Series. And he lived up to some of his expectations, in my opinion. He did score a win at the Charlotte Roval. He had 4 top 5s and 10 top 10s. Oh, wait, never mind. I'm looking at the wrong guy. He had 7 top 10s. I beg your pardon. And 20 top 20s. I think that AJ did have some good runs. Like we did see him obviously on the road courses where he is special breed on, and he did have a great run at Homestead. But the rest of the season was filled with a lot of bad luck, a lot of wrecks. So I'm gonna have to give AJ Allmendinger a C plus, mainly for the win that he had at the Roval.
He I like your points there. He did average 19.6 average finish this year, and he only finished in the lead lap in 20 of the 36 races. So AJ had a decent season. I wouldn't say it was great by any means. I'm gonna give him a C.
Yeah, I think he had an okay season. I'm kind of right in the same with you guys. I'm gonna say a C as well. I feel like he did okay. But I feel like it was kind of like the bare minimum for like what you would expect a NASCAR Cup Series driver.
True, like an average Cup Series driver.
Yeah.
But next up, we got Eric Almirola. Now, Eric Almirola was in his final full-time Cup Series season, and in my opinion, it was kind of the same season as last year. He didn't really do too much. Eric ended up scoring no wins, 2 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and 21 top 20s. I will give Eric Almirola a C. I don't really have much to insult him on, and I don't have really much to praise him on. I think he had a few good runs, like at Martinsville in the playoffs, but otherwise, he just had another mid-season.
His stats are basically the same as AJ, except for he did lead lap 5 more times. I'm gonna give him a C.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. I think it was just mediocre, and it's kind of the same as last year. So I'm gonna have to give him a C too.
Next up is Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman had a rough season in more ways than one. He ended up getting hurt after a sprint car crash and ended up having to miss a few races. And then once he got back in the car, yeah, he did okay. He ended up scoring 4 top 5s and 10 top 10s, which is a good rebound for him. But compared to last season, where he actually won a race, that's kind of a downgrade. And even when he was driving, he did have some bad luck at some points. We did see him up front a few times, but for the most part, he just couldn't stay with it. So for Alex, I'm gonna have to give him a C minus. Hope that he'll come
Well,
back and see him maybe getting a win and possibly sneaking his way into the playoffs. But it's going to be tougher with guys like Ty Gibbs and Bubba Wallace getting on track.
I don't have much different thing to say to you, or y'all about Alex Bowman. But he did lead only 89 laps, which is like almost a career life for him, in the Cup Series, and it wasn't a great year by any means. He only had one pole, I believe, either. So average finish 17th. I'm going to give him a C.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a year for Bowman, and I actually don't mind Bowman either. So, that kind of sucks for him. He definitely didn't do as good as he did last year. For that, I'll give him reasonably like a C as well. I mean, just kind of an year.
Next up is Austin Cindric. Now, Austin Cindric had a pretty solid rookie season last year. He obviously won the Daytona 500. He ran up front a few times at some of the other tracks, but this year he looked really mediocre. He looked strong on the plate tracks, like he does work well with the other Ford cars, but on other tracks, just there was nothing really special about Alex Bowman, or not Alex Bowman, Austin Cindric, if you will. He had no wins, one top five, five top tens. That is not Penske numbers, in my opinion. But I understand if it's a sophomore slump. But for this, I gotta be brutal with Austin, and I gotta say D.
Definitely a sophomore slump, the slump for Austin Cindric. Only having one top five in the number two cars, and only like 33 laps, average finish 21.6, and only finished on lead lap 20 to 36 races. I'm giving him a D minus.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm also agreeing that Austin Dillon had a D minus. Just very disappointing season for him.
Well, actually, Austin Dillon is next. We were talking about Cindric,
I
but
mean, Austin Cindric. I'm sorry, Austin Cindric. My bad.
that does
Sorry.
lead But it does lead into Austin Dillon, who Austin Dillon, I feel like had a good season last year, but this season he was a non-factor at all. He looked terrible in a lot of races. Like, yeah, he had some runs where he would be in the top 15, but otherwise he looked nothing like his teammate Kyle Busch, and it really showed a lot of people that were on Austin Dillon's side that, it's not the equipment that he's in, it's just that he is not a great driver. Austin Dillon had only one top five and seven top tens actually, but 20 top 20s, which is mostly where he was at. Otherwise, you would find him crashing or having mechanical failures. So I'm gonna give Austin Dillon an F.
Well, he also finished 29th in points, and this reminded me a lot of Jeff Green back in like 2004 with RCR, just way off. No, not 2004, 2002. He was way off pace, and you could just tell he was never really a contender for any of the races. He didn't have more top fives or more top tens than Cindric, but still, not a great year for him. Only led 19 laps too. It's an F. It's an F. A total F.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give him a fat F. He had that show around him, and they try to treat him. I think he may have gotten too hot shot-ish or whatever, but he had a horrible year. So I'm gonna have to give him an F as well.
Next up, we got Brad Keselowski. Now, if the beginning of the season, was considered the end of the season, I probably would have had to give Brad Keselowski around a C. But during the second half of the season, RFK really improved as a whole. They started looking like actual contenders and were way better than like Penske, for example, in a lot of the races coming toward the playoffs, and which we'll get into later on with Busher. But Brad Keselowski really showed that he's still got it in him. He had a lot of great runs in the second half of the season, and even some parts in the first half of the season, like we saw him contending with in the Daytona 500. I think even Atlanta, he was a good driver at. But yeah, there were a lot of great moments for Brad Keselowski. He still does not have a win, but he does have seven top fives and 16 top tens, which seems more Brad Keselowski like to me. Like, I honestly forgot he existed at some points last season, but now he's back on my radar. I'm gonna give Brad Keselowski an A minus.
Uh, Forgot existed. That's crazy. But Brad Keselowski, he averaged and started 14th. He averaged his finish of 14th, his average start of average finish 14th. If I could speak English, he was running at the finish in 33 of the 36 races, much improved from last year where he wrecked almost every single weekend, it seemed. Huge improvement. I'm giving them an A.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him an A- as well. I like Michael kind of said what I thought too. To be honest, like not that obviously they forgot him, but it was just kind of like, oh, Brad's in the race still, like it's kind of like you see him there and you're like, oh yeah, Brad, forgot about Brad.
Right.
Does that Mark Martin in the six?
Yeah, so I think it was he definitely had an improvement this year. I'd give him an A as well.
Next up, we got Bubba Wallace. Now, Bubba Wallace looked a lot better this season. He definitely made a lot of improvements compared to last year. There were still some problems. Like, I feel like still has a bit of an attitude problem, but he definitely fixed it a little bit. And his team, I think they still need some work on the pit crew side, but for their performance, Bubba was running up front at a lot of races, and especially at mile and a halves. He definitely improved his road course racing, and of course, we all know how he is on plate tracks. He's decent on short tracks. He almost won a race at Texas in the playoffs to advance him to the round of 8. I want to say I forgot exactly the round, but he did almost win that one Texas race. So he was up in front for a lot of races, which honestly really surprised me. And for this, I'm going to give Bubba Wallace a B plus.
He only had 5 top 5s this season, but he also led 285 laps, which is, I believe, this is career high. Average finish of 15th, average start of 12th. Decent year. I mean, finished on the lead lap in all but 8 races. So I'm going to give him a B.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn in between a B plus and a B. I think I'll give him a B just because I think he had a super solid year. I just think he looked a tad bit better last year, but nothing really bad. So I'd say he was good.
Yeah, no wins and then 10 top 10s. I think that's a pretty solid season. I wouldn't be shocked if Bubba Wallace won a race next season. But Chase Briscoe is up next. This is another guy that I feel like had a sophomore slump. He was not looking that great in a lot of the races, and I have some good moments from him, like in the Daytona 500. He worked well with Marola. Talladega, he worked well with Marola as well. But otherwise, I just did not really see anything too special with Chase. He ended up scoring no wins, 4 top 5s, and 8 top 10s, 19 top 20s. That's good enough for me to give him a C.
He he did lead 184 laps, but having only 4 top 5s and 8 top 10s not gonna cut it. He did have one pole. He had an average finish of 20th of 24 lead lap finishes. I'm sorry, Chase, but you're a D. You're a D minus this year.
B minus.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him a C minus. I'm gonna be a little more generous than Christian is. I
A
think that
little
31
bit
points is
worse.
crazy.
I think he
31
just he
points.
didn't really do that good, and but like Mike said, he had a sophomore slump. He just kind of he just really didn't do what he was supposed to be doing. I feel like his last year was way better of a year for him.
Oh, for sure. Next up, we got Chase Elliott. Now, Chase Elliott had a rough season. He obviously he with like 6 races in, he broke his leg due to a snowboarding accident. He comes back and then a few weeks later he gets suspended because he wrecked Denny Hamlin. He right rear hooked him. And then Chase just could never really pick up. Like at the beginning of the year, he was running fine, broke his leg, and then just came back, was looking, and then the suspension, I think we finished him off. But after that, he ran like crap for a few races, started picking back up, but it was just too late. He just not getting in the playoffs. And so he started being more like himself. Chase Elliott ended up having no wins, 7 top 5s, 15 top 10s, and 24 top 20s. That's good enough for me to give him a C minus. I think he will definitely get a win this next season, and he will definitely make the playoffs without a doubt.
Oh, his crew definitely wasn't the problem. And, he just put himself in a lot of bad situations. So he did finish on the lead lap in 23 of the 29 races. And this is the first year, I believe, he never got a pole in his cup crew. So that was some surprising 195 laps led, a huge difference in the last couple of years. I'm gonna give him a C plus.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I hope I don't come off as a hater here. I just don't feel like he didn't have much this season, and he didn't really do that good. And personally, I believe he gets like a D plus. I just, I mean, it's reasonable. No, it's reasonable. I mean, I see Mike's giving me a weird face here, but I mean, compared to how Chase Elliott is supposed to race here, I mean, this obviously was a very underperforming year, which obviously, there's reasons to that, but yeah, I'd say a D plus.
I mean, that's reasonable. I mainly kept him at a C because he did rate back and race like he should have. And a lot of the problems were not really his fault except for the suspension.
Yeah.
So, but I do see your point with S or D plus. I'm sorry. Next up, Christopher Bell. Now, Christopher Bell had a pretty similar season, in my opinion, to last year. He definitely looked like a threat at some of the races. He won at the Bristol race, and then I think he won at forgot which race he won at. I know it was a surprise,
Barnesville.
but Barnesville, yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, he definitely looked really, really good this whole season. He scored 2 wins, 10 top fives, 19 top tens, but just unfortunately, he made it to the championship four, but unfortunately, he just couldn't stick it. And he ended up having the brake issue. I'm going to give Christopher Bell a B plus. I think he'll be back next year and he'll be back near the round of eight. I don't know about the championship four, but definitely a round of eight appearance from me.
Oh, two really good seasons for Bell, despite not winning a whole lot. I mean, he had the most poles out of everybody this year with 6. He finished on he's running at the finish at 32 of the 36 races, and he led 599 laps as well. I would say it was a very successful season, and their pit crew was really good this whole season as well. I'm going to give him an A.
Yeah, I think he did super good. I'm actually gonna go in between. I'm gonna give him an A minus. I think he had a super good year. I mean, he's been really impressive, and like Mike said, I believe that he will be. He might be Final Four, but I don't know yet. I can't say that for sure, but he could be.
Now, next up, we got Chris Buescher. Now, obviously, I put the meme in there. Just, I don't know why not. But Chris Buescher, he really, really impressed me. Started out the season, he was normal Chris Buescher things. But once we got to the second half of the season, that dude really picked it up. 3 wins, 9 top 5s, and 17 top 10s is absolutely crazy for Chris Buescher. He looked like a legitimate threat to make it to the championship four. Like, I almost was regretting not picking him going to the round of eight with how good his run was. He couldn't keep it up as he did get eliminated. But otherwise, Chris Buescher, he had a really, really good season. He made all the right improvements. I'm actually going to give Chris Buescher an A plus. He went above and beyond this season.
He was on the lead lap in all but 4 races he ran this year. He did lead less laps than Keselowski with 255. His average finish was actually the second best out of every driver this season with 12.1. I don't really have much else to add. I'm giving him an A plus as well.
Yeah, super, super, super impressive season for Chris. I can tell you now that I was definitely rooting for him a little bit just because he was an underdog, and I always like an underdog story. So I have to give him an A plus as well. He was just very impressive, and I swear, man, like right when it turned to the second part of the season, he just started zooming.
And then next up, we got Corey LaJoy. Now, Corey LaJoy, I feel like he had a typical season. I don't really know what to add about it. I think his biggest highlight was obviously driving the 9 car, which I'm sorry, but that was the stupidest decision I've ever seen Rick Hendrick make. He only did it because pressure from the fans. And Corey LaJoy, with all due respect, he proved my point. He's not a good enough driver to race in the 9 car. He's good enough for Spire equipment, but that's it. Corey LaJoy ended up scoring no wins, 2 top fives, 3 top tens, and 17 top 20s. That's good enough for me to give him a B minus considering his equipment. But if this was like a different driver, I would have had to give him like a D or an F.
I mean, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s isn't that great. He did finish 25th in points, averaged a 20th place finish, and he finished on the lead lap in only 22 of the 36 races he ran. I mean, it's hard to give him this rating, but I'm gonna give him a D minus here.
Yeah, I get you. This wasn't really the most. I mean, it was a casual season for Corey, but part of me wants to feel bad for the guy just because the equipment, like Mike said. But I'm here to be honest, and sometimes you have to be brutally honest. And I just think he hasn't really done much, and because of that, I'm gonna also agree with Christian and give him a D. I give him like a D.
Oh, you guys are harsh. I was at least trying to be nice to Corey LaJoy. Dang.
You can't
But
give him a D. That's crazy.
next up, we got Daniel Suarez. Now, Daniel Suarez, this is
Oh,
another driver who had a pretty solid season last year and then ended up having kind of a decline. Trying to find him right now on my little board. There we go. He had no wins, 3 top fives, and 10 top tens. That's good enough for me to give him about a C.
honestly, I thought Daniel was going to be better this year.
I just-
Considering how well he was last year, only 3 top 5s for him shocked me. 19th in points, not that great. I thought he was going to make the playoffs. He only led 48 laps this year. 19th place finish. Just not doing that great. I think this was not a great year for him. I'm giving him a D minus. I expected to see him do way better than that.
Yeah, it was a pretty rough year for him. I mean, when I look at it, I'm gonna give him like a D plus. Wasn't really a good year for Daniel. He did way better last year, and maybe that's just we were expecting a lot more out of him, and we should have just took that as like, that was luck. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he'll come back next year and he'll hit harder, but until then, I'm not impressed.
Next up, we got Denny Hamlin. Now, Denny Hamlin had a pretty typical season. He was a little cocky toward the end, claiming that it was his year when William Byron and Kyle Larson both raced better. I'm sorry, but I have to throw my Denny Hamlin jab out there. But let me praise him for a little bit. He did have a lot of
Deserved.
great runs this season. He did look like a Final Four driver, and if this was a legitimate playoff system, he would have made it, no doubt. But otherwise, it was a typical Denny Hamlin year. He scored 3 wins, 14 top fives, 19 top tens, 28 top 20s. I'm going to have to give Denny Hamlin an A.
He had a very consistent year. He was running to finish in 32 to 36 races. He won 4 poles, so had 998 laps. I feel like he had a better year in some ways than he did last year. He just seemed to be more consistent. And all the different tracks that they ran on, he seemed to be in the top 10 at almost every single
Yeah.
track. I mean, I thought it was an okay year for him. I'm giving him an A.
Yeah, I agree. I think he had an A. I mean, he was pretty consistent at doing racing and consistent at being a crybaby. But that's besides the point. Overall though, he had a really good season, and as much as I hate to say it, but it was a good season. It's an A for me.
Next up, we got Eric Jones. Now, this is someone I was really disappointed in the whole season. Eric Jones last season, he looked really strong. He looked like he was making improvements. It looked like Legacy was really the team for him to go and rebound and be his own driver. But then once Jimmy Johnson came in and started owning the team as a whole fell off, I felt like. And
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that really is Eric Jones's fault because he did race the car well at some points. He's very good at play tracks, and there's certain tracks like Darlington and um, maybe Las Vegas. I can't remember exactly, but there are some tracks where Jones was strong at. But otherwise, a few good runs. He was in the wall most of the time with his teammate Noah Gragson. And Jones ended up scoring only no wins, 1 top 5, and 7 top 10s. That's good enough for me to give Eric Jones a D. He looked horrible, but I hope he comes back next season because I think Eric Jones is a really talented and underrated driver.
Yeah, I really do like Eric Jones, one of my favorite drivers. Him driving the iconic 43, but 27th in points is not that great. I mean, they only having one top five, only led 24 laps. This wasn't a great year. Only, 21 lead lap finishes out 36. I'm gonna give him an F as much as I would don't want to.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty bad year for him. He went from looking really good and crisp to looking just bad. I mean, uh, it was almost disappointing. It was not almost. It was disappointing, and it was kind of sad because I kind of like Eric Jones. So not seeing him do good this year sucked, and because I'm gonna give him like a D minus. Yeah, just a rough year.
And then next up, we got Harrison Burton. I don't really know
Hmm.
what to say about him because he did run good at times, but there was also a lot of bad luck that took him out of the races. He scored no wins,
Yeah.
no top 5s, 2 top 10s. That's not that great in Wood Brothers equipment. They're not that bad. They're affiliated with Penske, but I don't know. I originally gave him a C, but after thinking about it, I kind of want to change that to a D.
I was thinking like over the last 2 years he'd been doing better than the Benedetto in the car, but at the same time he only finished like two top tens, and then he didn't lead a single. Like he only led 25 laps, which is basically like barely anything. Only finished on the lead lap in 17 of the 36 races. He got caught in a lot of wrecks, which I get it's not really his fault, but just wasn't a great year for him at all. To average a 25th place finish, 31st in points. I'm giving them a D minus considering their equipment and their team right now.
Bad year, dude. Let me tell you, if you're thinking about Harrison Burton at all this season, man, you got problems. All right. He didn't do absolute nothing. I feel like he was wishy washy. I didn't really see him a lot. I feel like it was just not good. I'm gonna have to give him like a D. Not a good year. And for his equipment and his driving and just how, like I said, how wishy washy he was, I give it a D.
I think wishy-washy is really the wrong word, but I see what you're saying. But next up, we got my boy Joey Logano. Now, you have to criticize him a little bit. He looked really disappointing. Now, he still had a good season, don't get me wrong, but there was a lot of moments this season where I was really disappointed. Felt like his team didn't really come and show up as much as they should have. I felt like his cars looked way off, especially in the second half of the season. He only scored 1 win, which is okay. There were a lot more dominant cars in the field, I felt like, but for you to only score for one win and then like looking slow half the time, he was getting lapped at some points. That is not a championship defense season, if you ask me. He would have a lot of mechanical failures. He got caught up in a lot of other people's messes. And even though he had a good year statistical wise, I was still a little disappointed. 1 win, 11 top 5s, 17 top 10s, which isn't that bad. But like I mentioned, I feel like he could have done way better if the team had actually showed up, given him good cars. If he had a little bit of better pit strategy, he would have done a little better. But for the season that he's had, I'll give him a B.
19 of the races this year, he did not finish the top 10. He only had two poles, only led 308 laps, way less than last year. 15th place finish on average and 29 lead lap finishes. He also gave us that iconic moment at Pocono, and 12th in points. And I don't even know how he got 12th in points, to be honest. I thought he finished like 17th in points or 16th. I'm giving him a D.
Okay. Um, D is a little wild in my opinion.
That's crazy.
I, I think he didn't have a good year. Right. I get you, I guess. I mean, I don't really get you, but I got you. In my personal opinion, I think Joey Logano was I mean, listen, I mean, besides, like, okay, like, first of all, racing, it was okay. Um, Obviously not what it was last year. As Mike said, better pitch strategy would be crucial. I feel like they really need to work on that. Um, off the track, well, I mean, kind of on the track, there was a thing that happened, kind of made an A out of himself. That was embarrassing as a Logano fan. I'm sure Mike remembers that.
Mm,
But if I had to give like a rating of his skills, I'd probably give it like a B minus. Just not that good of a year.
right. I mean, I disagree with a D. I think the lowest I would go is probably a C. But
Yeah.
next up we got Justin Haley. Now, Justin Haley was another guy. He was looking like he could have had a good future, but looked a little off at some points in the season. Now, Haley, he had no wins, one top five, and six top tens. That is good enough for me to give him a D. I thought that colleagues should have kept him because he's still a younger driver and he still has some potential. And he may have just had a sophomore slump, which is okay. He still did better than the other guys like Briscoe and Cindric. But yeah, I mean, Justin Haley definitely had a disappointing season. Like I said, I think colleagues should have kept him. I think they really screwed up with letting him go and replacing him with Ty Dillon and Daniel Hemrick. They are looking embarrassing right now, if you ask me. Haley is going to be off at Rick Ware Racing. I have mixed opinions on that, considering I have heard they have an alliance with RFK, which is supposed to improve them. And if Haley wants to, he can get the six when Keselowski retires. Which, if that is the case, that's a good move for Haley. But otherwise, I don't know why else you'd want to go to Rick Ware Racing. Like I mentioned, D.
Yeah, Justin Haley, he had more top tens than Eric Almirola and Ryan Preece, but he only led 24 laps. He had average finish of 21, which is I believe his career high though, and average finish. But he still wasn't that great. He was consistent, but consistently mediocre. 33 running at the finishes of 36, which isn't bad, but still, just wasn't a great year for him. 26 and points. I'm gonna give him a C minus. If no, I'm gonna give him a D. A D.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty bad year. I give him like a D. I mean, I didn't really see much of him, and so with the stats as well, it's just not that impressive.
And then next up, we have Kevin Harvick. Now, Kevin Harvick was in his last season, which is very unfortunate, but we all knew it was coming soon. And he had a pretty similar year to last year, if you want my opinion. He scored no wins, six top fives, and 14 top tens. I'm going to give him a B.
You he seemed to be like more consistent than last year. He didn't win. He did lead 157 laps, average finish of 14. Was running near the finish in all but one race, which is really good for him. I'm gonna give him an A.
Hmm. Wow,
A minus actually.
I'm gonna look like a jerk here. Okay. Honestly, I feel like he like Mike said, he kind of had the same thing as last year going on, and although I think a little better, a little more consistent. But because I'm gonna give him like a C plus. I just not much there.
Plus.
C plus, yes.
Really?
Uh,
Not bad.
I mean, listen, his last year was really not good. This
It was
year, I
better
mean,
than some people's last seasons, like Jimmy Johnson, well, not Jeff Gordon, but
oh
Jimmy
yes, but
Johnson.
yeah.
you guys are comparing. Listen, but the reason you guys are doing this is because it's his last season. You're like
No,
comparing last season. No, I'm comparing his
I
last season to this
never
season.
said that.
I know you guys didn't, but I'm just saying,
know.
like, I just don't. Oh, hold on. All I'm saying is, I don't truly believe you guys are giving that rating because it's just it's like it's a season for Harvick. No, I feel like you're just giving him a nicer rating
that,
because it's his last season.
that's a B. That is a B season.
No, he was
I did not.
13th in points.
You obviously, yeah, you obviously take his last season in account to mention it on the episode, so that way we can talk about it and explain his season in a
Yes,
But
But
I
what
would
I'm
hold
saying
on,
is, I
hold
feel
on.
like you guys are just being
Don't
generous.
interrupt me. Don't interrupt me.
Uh-oh.
Um,
Uh-oh.
um, Kevin Harvick, yeah, it is his last season, like I mentioned, but no way I was being nice just because it's his last season. I love Jimmy Johnson, and I would have given his last season a D minus or an F. That's
Yeah.
no way in account. Kevin Harvick just had a B season, maybe a B minus season, but I'm going to give him a B even because he did have a solid year.
Yeah, I don't
He
think he
ran
had
the
that good of a
second
year.
most laps out of everybody the entire year. He ran the second most laps out of everybody. He only didn't run at the finish one time. I think that deserves a B, in my opinion. I don't see how that
Okay,
deserves less.
I'll change it because you guys are making a point. I give it like a B minus.
Okay, thank you. That's better.
That's fair.
Um, next
I was
next up,
wrong. I was wrong, people. I was wrong. I didn't. Okay, let me say this though, just real quick, before people are like, "What is Cam talking about?" Shut up, Karen. I know you're gonna be in the comments somewhere. Shut up. All right, let me tell you. Let me tell you. I'm going off just view, but when I hear stats sound a lot better than I guess just what I see. So
hold on. We're going to cut this, and then when we come back, we'll talk about Kyle Busch. All right, so next up, we got Kyle Busch. Now, Kyle Busch was in his first season with Richard Childress and the 8 car. And he did what I thought he was going to do. He was on a rebound. The only thing I was incorrect about is I said Kyle Busch was going to win the championship. I said he was going to win around 6 races. He did not. He did win 3, which is valid for Kyle Busch, but otherwise, he did not have the season that a lot of people expected otherwise. He fell off a little bit. He was wrecking a lot, but did look good at a lot of different points in the season. He ended up scoring 3 wins and 10 top fives. Not sure about how many top tens, but I will give Kyle Busch a B plus.
He started off the season really well. He got 17 top tens, but was right at the finish 36 races, only finished on the lead lap 25 times. It seemed like there was some races where he was just really off. The crew was off, he was off, but there's a lot of mistakes that his team made this year. And Richard Childress Racing they didn't live up to the hype in my opinion. I just felt like they didn't have a great year overall as a chemistry, not just in the Cup but the Xfinity Series. We know what happened there, but I'm gonna say he will get a B minus.
yeah, I agree with Christian. I think like a B minus. Solid season, kind of average, but it was good.
And then next up, we got Kyle Larson. Now, Kyle Larson had another really strong year. Looking more like himself. He ended up getting 4 wins, 15 top fives, and 18 top tens. That's a really solid season. You could even make a case that he even deserved the championship over William Byron. So I'm going to give Kyle Larson an A.
He finished He finished in the top 10 or top 5 7 more times than Ryan Blaney. He had 18 top 10s, 2 poles. He led the most laps out of anybody this year with 1,127. Average start of 10th, average finish of 14th, and he finished on the lead lap in 25 of the 36 races. I think that deserves an A.
Yeah, I think he had a really good season. Super strong. I'm gonna have to give it an A. Kyle Larson doing Kyle Larson things.
And then next up, we got Michael McDowell. Now, Michael McDowell had yet another really unpredictable season. Nobody predicted him to be as strong as he did. He had a slight downgrade compared to last year, or not last year, but like 2021 and 2022, where, he was surprisingly in the top 10, but he still had his moments. He got a win. I think it was at Watkins Glen or the Indy Road Course, one of the two. He looked really strong at some tracks. He ended up making the playoffs. He ended up scoring 1 win, 2 top fives, and 8 top tens. I'll give Michael McDowell a B minus, right? That's what I had. Yes, B minus.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this year he seemed more consistent than last year in some ways. Even though his average finish was 19th, he just seemed to be more consistent. He was running at the finish in all but 3 races. I mean, Brahma Motorsports has gotten better, and I said that last year too. T- Todd Gillen did pretty well for them last year, but only two top fives. I don't really know how high I'll rank them, other than probably a C plus.
Yeah, I think it was an okay year. It was decent. If I had to give it, I'd give it like a B minus. I thought it was a good year. It was okay for him.
And then next up, we got Noah Gragson. I still gave him a grade, even though he got suspended. Noah Gragson had such high expectations going into the Cup Series. Maybe not going to the
A
playoffs,
lot.
maybe not winning the race, but being a strong driver like Eric Jones was and finishing in the top 10 a lot of races. But he absolutely crumbled. Whether it was bad luck or his own stupidity, he just straight up did not look good at all. He looked embarrassing.
Mm-mm.
He was getting wrecked, like I mentioned, mechanical failures, and that's mostly on the team. You can't have a driver who's a rookie and also have a crappy team like Legacy. That's just not a great combination. He got it punched in the face by Ross Chastain. Oh, just
Yeah.
that weird bull haircut. He lost a bet to on Austin Dillon. A lot of things went wrong with Noah Gregson. He ended up getting suspended after liking a racist meme on Instagram. I wish Noah the best of luck. I don't wish anything bad for him. There's a lot of people that are saying he's going to go to the 10, even though that's not confirmed, which I still have mixed opinions on that. I personally think he should have gone to the Xfinity series because he's definitely way stronger there. But for this rookie season, you already know what I'm going to have to give Noah Gregson. I am giving him a big fat F.
Where else are we going to put him? I mean, no top fives, no top tens and 21 starts. Only finished on a lead lap 4 of his 21 starts. Only led 2 laps. His average finish was 28. Just his expectations were so high, and he had such a bad year. I'm giving him an F.
Yeah, this is an F, bro. Noah Gregson is more like Noah gagged, bro, and there's no pause on that. I mean, he did bad. Horrible year, automatic F.
And next up, we have Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Now, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. really improved a lot from the last season. You can see his grade on the right-hand corner, like I mentioned. Um, he won the Daytona 500, which was a little surprising. Even though he's been up front, it's still surprising to hear about Ricky Stenhouse winning. But he didn't just stop at winning the Daytona 500. He had a lot of good runs that were way better than his average. He scored a few top tens. He had 9 of them, and he had 2 top fives. That's a pretty solid year, even though he didn't make it out of the first round. Like obviously everybody predicted he wouldn't make it out of the first round. I think this is a good start to Ricky Stenhouse, and we'll see if he can improve. I give him a B.
You know, I don't really know what to say here, because part of me wants to give him like a C plus, but part of me's like, I don't know. I mean, he actually ran more miles than Ryan Blaney did this year, believe it or not. He ran more miles than Ryan Blaney, the Cup champion, which is insane. He did finish 16th in points. They only led 39 laps, but having a 17th average finish is really good for Ricky in that team. I'm gonna actually give him a B minus.
You know, there's been a long thing with me and Ricky, for me making a lot of
Yeah.
jokes about him to also congratulating him because I think he's done better with the team he's had and the car he's had, right? But this was once again a good year for Ricky. And I think I still think it's really impressive. Because of the equipment that he has. And for that, I'm gonna give him a B. I think he has a super solid year, and I don't know. I hope he does better more. I mean, like I think. Listen, I truly believe this. I think Ricky could do really good if he had a good car.
That's debatable
I,
because
you know,
I don't know. Here's the thing. Will he do better? Absolutely. Will he do as good as you're hyping him up to be? I don't think so.
I don't know, man.
I think
I'm not. I could understand. I could understand where you're coming from, where and what you're saying. I get that completely, and that's definitely on a part of my brain where I think that. But there's also a part of me that thinks, man, if he's done pretty solid here, I'm like, I think he could get something on his chest if he had a nicer car. And that's just me.
I think
Yeah,
he
I
should
get
have
you.
gone. I think he should have gone to the SHR 10 because it's not a great car, but it's not crappy car. It's a
Yeah,
car that, depending on the driver, it could either be a great car or a mid-tier car. That's where I think we would really see Ricky prove himself.
I think he's been running better with the 47 than the 10 car has the last couple of years. I don't know why he would go to the 10, but he had a better year than Daniel Suarez, and who could have predicted that? Who would have thought that he would have had a better year than Daniel Suarez? Because I definitely did not see that coming.
I mean, and Mike, let's not forget what Christian said as a stat too. He ran more than Blaney,
That is true, and
and
I'm gonna
Blaney's the
get to Blaney.
champion. So if Blaney's the champion, I feel like he could have a better car and he could push a lot better stats. That's just me. That's just me though. I mean, we don't know until we see it, right? So
That's true. Yeah. Next up, we got Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain, in my opinion, had a little bit
Ross.
more. Yeah, yeah, we got the glazing going on over there, folks. Um, but yeah, Ross Chastain, I feel like he was a little bit more quiet at some point. I didn't really see him angering too many drivers. I mean, yeah, he did have that incident with Noah Gragson, like we mentioned earlier, but otherwise, I didn't really see a lot of the big names complaining about him too much. I thought he raced a lot better. And also, he had an incident with Ryan Blaney in the championship race, but we all know that's a mix of both drivers, and plus Ryan has been notoriously a little bit of a crybaby. But bias from that aside, Ross Chastain had a pretty solid season. He ended up scoring 2 wins, one at Nashville and then one at Phoenix in the championship race. 10 top fives and 14 top tens. That's good enough for me to give Ross Chastain a B plus.
He actually tied for fifth with most top fives this year. He led 640 laps, which I believe is more. I want to say it's more last year, but it's close. Average start and average finish of 15th. Finished on about 28 of the 36 races. Was running at the finish in all but four. I think it was a really solid year. I was hoping it would be better. It wasn't as better points wise, but great year still for him. I'm giving him a B.
yeah, I agree. I'm gonna give him a B too. I think he had a good year.
I think we accidentally skipped over Martin Truex Jr. So let's talk about Martin Truex
Yeah.
Jr. here. Now, Martin Truex Jr., he had a really solid year. And in my opinion, he was Monday Martin. Every time there was a rain delay, it felt like he had a much stronger car and he would just dominate races. That dude looked like he was on fire, and he looked like at the beginning of the season, like he could have been a championship contender. He fell off a ton in the playoffs, where, in my opinion, then Larson kind of passed him as like the second best driver. But Truex was definitely a top five driver all year if we were talking more of a legitimate points format. He had 3 wins, 9 top 5s, and 17 top 10s. That is good enough for me to give Martin Truex Jr. an A. If he had done better in the playoffs and made it to the final four, he could have even gotten an A plus. He could have maybe even had a chance for a championship. But I think an A is a fair rating for him.
I had him winning the championship, and it just didn't happen. But he led 899 laps, which is up in the top five out of anybody this year. Average start 11th, average finish at 13th. He finished. He was right to finish in all but three races, and he just was really consistent this year. I thought he would have probably won the championship, and it just didn't work out. But very solid year for him. He had some ups and downs, but I'm gonna give him a B plus.
Truex had a super super solid year. He put up really good stats, put up good numbers, raced pretty good, raced pretty hard. I don't think I remember him getting in too much trouble this year as well with, any drama or sorts. I mean, he kind of stayed his own lane, and I think he had a super good season. I'm going to give him an A minus.
And then next up, we got the Cup Series champion Ryan Blaney. Now, I got a bit of a controversial opinion. I still gave him a good grade,
Uh-oh.
but I have a bit of a controversial opinion. Ryan Blaney did pretty solid throughout the season. Yes, he was very quiet at some points throughout the season. He did better than his teammate Cindric, and you could even make a case he could have even done better than Logano. He really turned it on toward the second half of the season. But did he really deserve to win a championship? I know we talked about this in the last episode, the season finale episode. Did he really deserve a championship? Personally, I honestly don't think he did. I mean, in terms of the playoff format, yes, he did. But if this was the Winston Cup format, I don't think he did. I think William Byron, Denny Hamlin, and Truex, and even Christopher Bell did better than him throughout the season. That's not to say Ryan Blaney did horrible throughout the season. He definitely had a great season and made a lot of improvements, but I just don't think he was worthy to win the championship with a legitimate format. But he still did, so good for him. He'll definitely etch his name in NASCAR history, but it really does go to show you win a few races in the playoffs and you're automatically a championship contender. It's ridiculous, but I still give Ryan Blaney a B. I think he had a pretty solid season and he'll continue this kind of solid Blaney streak. With Blaney, he had 3 wins, Coke 600, Talladega, and Phoenix. And then, oh, not Phoenix, excuse me, Martinsville, 8 top 5s, and then 18 top 10s.
All right. So I'm going to throw out a stat to y'all and just make of it what you will. Ryan Blaney ran less laps than Bubba Wallace, Michael McDowell, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Ross Chastain, William Byron, and Kevin Harvick. And not only
Right.
that, he averaged a 14th place finish, which is the same as Keselowski, worse than Hamlin, and worse than Truex Jr., worse than Chase Elliott, even, who finished 17th in points. Just shows you how flawed this format is. He did lead 562 laps, but he only finished in the top 5 of 8 of the 36 races, and he was running at the finish in 33-36, which is pretty consistent. He did have a big win at the Coke 600. It was a much better year than last year, don't get me wrong, but championship worthy? I disagree. I'm giving him a B plus.
Yeah, I think he had a B to B plus year. I'll say B plus. But I mean, I truly believe that Byron deserved the championship this year.
No question.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt here. Like, I just believe that he should have had it in the bag, and and that's not to say that Ryan Blaney in today's age didn't earn this title. I mean, with the way the
Format.
yeah, thank you. The format works. I mean, he earned every bit of it, right?
He did.
But to say that he deserved it in the way that we all look at, I mean, the way most of the fans look at it, no. I don't think that it was there for him, and he had he had a good season. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I mean, just to show, it's crazy. Like, he had Bubba Wallace had more. Ricky Stenhouse had more miles. So to me, I think
More laps, too.
more laps. What did I say? Miles, my bad. Um,
That's not the same thing. I mean, it's almost the same. Yeah.
and because of that, I just don't think that it was as good of a year as him winning the championship, which should be.
Exactly. Completely agree. Next up, we got Ryan Preece, not Ryan Blaney. Ryan Preece in his first season with the SHR 41. I don't really know what to say. He kind of lived up to expectation, but he did have a couple of good runs, especially at Martinsville, and also he led some laps at Talladega. He did have that big flip in the Daytona race, the regular season finale. That was crazy, and he ended up coming back looking worse than Davey Allison did, in my opinion, the next race. But Ryan Preece, other than that, really had a disappointing season. He had no wins, 1 top 5, and 2 top 10s. That's good enough for me to give him a D minus.
I hate to be that guy, but Davey Allison had way more injuries than Freeze. He had like a
Okay,
broken
never mind. I
arm,
stand corrected.
collarbone, all that. But okay. Anyways, Freeze had he was underwhelming. I feel like he did have a pole, but he only led 149 laps. He only was, lead lap 20 of the 36 races, only one top five, two top tens. I thought uh, it was a Michael Waltrip season. I feel like honestly, I have
Agree
to
with
give him
that.
a C minus.
Yeah, I agree. I'll give it like a D plus. It was a really bad year. Very lackluster, not good. Just that Christian summed it up well. A Michael Waltrip year.
A Michael Waltrip year and still giving him a C minus is crazy.
I'm gonna
Um,
change it to a D minus.
the next up we got Todd Gilliland. Now, Todd Gilliland, like you guys were talking about, he did really strong last season. He was doing okay at the beginning part of the season, but getting replaced with Zane Smith for some of the races and might not have even been able to run the full-time schedule if it wasn't for Rick Ware. I thought that was really stupid of front row, but
Yeah.
Todd definitely had a bit of an off year. He ended up scoring well, not an off year, but it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't that great either. He ended up scoring no wins, no top fives, but 4 top 10s though. That is really solid and on tracks that you wouldn't expect. Like he did well on the Chicago street course. I originally gave Todd Gilliland a D minus, but I'm gonna have to give him maybe a D plus or even a C minus. I think he did really solid and he definitely has some potential. I think he should go down to the Xfinity to try to prove his worth a little bit and then try to get a cup ride. But he's not horrible. He's on a decent track.
On a decent track, also him has less laps led this year than JJ Yeley, Noah Gregson, and Cody Ware combined. He never led a lap this year. And that's very disappointing because, I thought he was going to do better. And he's out here, he did was running a finish in all but 4 races, but still, like, good grief, Todd. I thought he was going to have a better year than this. I'm giving him an F.
Mm.
Yeah, with those stats, I'm gonna give him a D minus, man. Not a good year at all.
And then next up, we
Oh,
got
my.
Ty Dillon. Now, Ty Dillon was just awful.
Uh,
There's no other way around this. He was absolutely awful. Why do they put him in these cars? No wins, no top fives, no top tens, 5 top 20s. No, awful. I don't recall a single thing that Ty Dillon did all year. F. No question.
his average his average start was 31st. His average finish was 27th, and he only finished on lead lap in 15 of the 36 races. Is enough.
Oh my god, an average start was 31st. F,
Yeah.
fat F, bro. F. Don't even say the name, just an F.
Nah.
Listen, whenever you say Ty Dillon, you just need to have a big old right by his.
It's true. And he gets a ride at Colleague, who, in my opinion, that's an upgrade
Oh
over
my
Spire. Listen, Colleague is around the same level or even above Spire. Why is this guy still getting a cup ride? He sucks. He's proven time and time again he sucks. Why does he keep getting cup rides?
Yeah,
But
matter of fact, take him to the gulag, man. Give him to the trucks, dude. Let him be in the trucks for a little
yes.
bit. Dude. But honestly,
Yo, Ty Dillon
Ty
might
Dillon
actually
needs
win
a
a race in
timeout.
the trucks.
Ty Dillon needs a timeout.
I ain't gonna lie. If Matt DiBenedetto can win a race in the truck series, so can Ty Dillon. But next up we got Ty Gibbs, the other Ty. Now, Ty in his rookie season, a lot of people had expectations for him, just like Noah Gregson. A lot of people said he would get a win. And while he did not get a win, he still ended up having a pretty solid season. He wasn't really ruffling anybody's feathers. He had his moments where he was struggling and he was trying to find the groove of the Cup Series, but he could have even made a case if he had started running a little bit better early on in the season. He could have even made the playoffs. His real first big moment where he was doing well was at Dover. And then since Dover, he started really being on the come up. He scored no wins, 4 top fives, and 10 top tens. That is a really solid rookie season. I'm going to give him a B plus, and I think he will make the playoffs next season.
I, I mean, I can't disagree with you. I mean, he did lead 112 laps. His average start was actually better than guys like Chris Buescher, Brad Keselowski, and Kevin Harvick. I mean, he averaged 14th start position, 18th average finish. He finished running at the end of the race in 31 to 36 races. Did better than I thought he was, that's for sure. I'm going to give him a B.
I'm gonna give him a B plus, man. He had a pretty impressive season, especially for being a rookie. And I have higher expectations for him next season. So we'll see.
And then next up, we got Tyler Reddick. Now, Tyler Reddick in his first season with 23-11. This is really a year that a lot of people wanted to see. Can he improve on his results at RCR? A lot of people were considering 23-11 to have better equipment, considering they're basically Joe Gibbs 2.0. And Tyler Reddick didn't really disappoint. Yeah, in the beginning of the season, it was a little iffy because he had some bad luck. He was at, around 32nd in the points, but he really worked his way back up there, and he ended up winning 2 races. He ended up having 10 top fives as well as 16 top tens. I'm going to give Tyler Reddick a B plus.
I one thing that I'm going to base my rating on is also this. I had him in my fantasy lineup almost every single race this year. It seemed like. I mean, he was someone that I constantly counted on to give me fantasy points. He led 470 laps. He had an average start of 10th, average finish of 15th. But he finished on the lead lap in all but 8 races. Like that's crazy. I thought he had a better year in some ways than last year. I'm going to give him an A minus.
Yeah, I think he had a really consistent year. Like super consistent. And I'm gonna give him a B plus. I'm almost thinking, you know what, why not? I'm gonna give him an A minus, man. He had a pretty good year.
And then lastly, we have William Byron. Now, we were praising William. We were praising William Byron throughout this whole video, so I guess you can imagine the grade that we're about to give him. But listen, William Byron had a great season. I think he had a career year. He looked strong in every race. It felt like he was in the top 5 in every race. He would lead laps in almost every race. I mean, 6 wins, 15 top fives, 21 top tens, 28 top 20s. That is absolutely crazy considering that a few years ago, before I even started this podcast, I was criticizing William Byron as a bust. So, William Byron, I would like to sincerely apologize to you. You should have won the championship. There's no way it should have been Ryan Blaney. It should have easily been William Byron's year. I'm easily giving William Byron an A.
I agree. I mean, he had the most touchdowns anybody with 21. 4 poles, second most laps led with 1,016. He had an average start of 10.9, average finish of 11th. He was running at the finish in all but 3 races and was on the lead lap all but 6. How is that not championship worthy? I do not know. As you can see, I'm wearing the DuPont hat. Got the 24 there. I mean, he deserves that championship, and I hope he wins it next year. I mean, he's not one of my easy. I pulled for Kevin Harvick and Eric Almirola and Chase Briscoe and Ross Chastain, and half those guys I mentioned are now retired. So Byron's going up on my list of drivers I'm pulling for. I don't know about y'all. I know it sounds like I'm glazing, but I think he had a great year.
I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of William Byron, but I definitely will give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, he had an amazing year, a championship season for sure. I don't even think honestly, I would give I would give Blaney the honorary champion. They give at little kids parties or well, here's the honorary trophy. I'd give that to Blaney, and I'd give Byron the real thing. He had a great year, and I'm gonna give him an A plus. I think he had a super, super good year. I mean, those are champion stats.
Yeah,
right.
A plus for sure.
And so with that will conclude this year's grades video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment, like, subscribe. Make sure you guys follow our socials as the weird sound there. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Peace.
What I think, all these women lie, push me to the